son. Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit. Now, here are your hosts, Clint and James.
Oh shit! I should have had that in there. Fuck.
What the fuck was that?
The energy on that was wild.
It's hilarious.
Got me hype.
I need to hit that air horn a few more times. I need to hit that air horn. Yeah, exactly. It just needs it. Welcome back, everybody. We're here. It's Clint, it's James, and we're here with our buddy Dakota. Let's give it up for Dakota.
Thank you guys for having me, bro. I appreciate it. James, when I saw you would do a podcast, bro, I got very excited.
Now, I think it's fair to explain the reason why, and it's because you have started a seemingly awesome podcast from nothing, and I was there watching you doing it from the beginning. Were we talking about it before you had done anything? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, bro, because you helped me make my little thumbnail graphic.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually did like a couple of practice runs just for me to kind of feel it out. I think I might have sent you one too to be like, how's this sound? Like, do I sound like an asshole?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely had like a couple of practice runs, and you obviously gave me that little image that has become like the image of the show a little bit.
That is amazing. No,
yeah.
I love that. No, but seriously, that watching you just start doing it, and I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy the people you get on there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, the answer is always no. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, too, man. When I first started doing the show, I did straight up 35, 36 episodes without a guest, and just nobody answering me. And it's still a lower percentage now, but I'm able to get a guest every week now, which is incredible. And I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, I host a show called the Slip and Weave Podcast. It's a show where I talk about boxing and the politics of boxing, and I talk to fighters and trainers and promoters, whoever's involved in the sport. And it was basically like pre-pandemic, you know, I'd always been in the gym. I'd always been in a boxing gym, and I had surgery on my wrist and my hand right before the pandemic. Started the podcast during that. And then once the pandemic hit, I kind of just kept rolling with it. And here we are.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah,
you know,
it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you gotta with some things you just gotta do them, right? And the hardest thing is starting to do it. But after you fold it into just another routine, like another routine behavior that you do, I don't know. It's been awesome to watch you. Thanks, just man. Talking about boxing to now having guests on here. It's a thing. And how long have you been doing it now? It's like a couple of years.
God damn. I mean, it's probably been about 3 years now. Yeah. But I've had a couple of chunks of time. Like when I moved, I didn't do it for a couple of months. So there's been chunks of time where I didn't put out a show. But I've done like damn near 90 episodes now.
It's a lot.
And it's been really cool. And I'm now working with another channel called ITR Boxing. We do all kinds of shit, from like little documentaries about fighters to covering.
Oh my God, that's dope.
You know, going to fights, weigh-ins, gyms in person, talking to people. So yeah, it's been wild. And like the two things in my life have always kind of been boxing and music. And I think this is the most I put into boxing in my entire life. And it's been incredible.
Well, I mean, I think it's like a one-to-one relationship. Like once you started being like, I'm just going to do this, it was amazing watching it fucking come together. But that's just the fucking grind, man. You sit down and you do the work, you build the thing, and you know, it becomes a thing. You follow the steps. It's not as difficult as just starting to do it. That's the hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and having the consistency to like not get discouraged at the episode that 6 people watch, that you don't, you know, that you're just like talking to yourself in your room. Like
we don't know what that's like at all.
Yeah, not at all.
No, but I'm telling you guys definitely have more viewers than I did when I was.
No, I'm telling you, we don't.
They're all bots. It's all bots. Well,
It's-
Dakota, I'm just happy to have you because we definitely needed a fighter in the crew.
Hell yeah.
You know, so I'm more of a lover. James, I don't really know where you fall.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a hybrid.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm sort of a lover fighter hybrid.
Yeah,
Well,
we need
you know-
we need a little muscle around here.
Yeah, that's really what it is. A little bit of a calloused hand, you know.
Hell yeah, dude.
What's funny, dude, is I was never ever. I'm still not really into sports, but the older I get, the more I really start appreciating blood sport.
Yeah.
Like honestly, and here's why. So much more is at stake. Like when a boxer steps into a ring, it's not just winning or losing and an insane amount of money. It's like if I don't pay attention, I could die. It's happened before, or I could get concussed so bad that the rest of my life I'm not doing anything.
Well, I think that's a lot of why too. Like anybody who has seen my show kind of knows how much I talk about how bad the judging is in boxing because of like everything you said. There's so much on the line. So then for somebody to get in the ring and do everything the right way and win the fight and then not have the fight go their way, it's like you're taking away future paychecks from them forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it happens in boxing all the time where a guy wins a fight clean, goes right to the back of the line and doesn't deserve it.
It's some dirty shit, dude. I'm sure like I have another buddy who's super into basketball is his drug of choice. And he is really into like the skeevy stuff that went on in basketball in the 70s, 80s, game fixing with the mob. And I can only imagine what kind of shiesty business has gone down in boxing over the years. You know,
There's movies about it, about tall tales.
Yes. Yes. I mean, definitely in the 50s, the mafia had like full blown control over boxing and was able to fix fights. I don't know if it's that blatant anymore, but there's definitely like a combination of things that keep it. It's not fully a sport. It's like part entertainment. You know what I mean? If it was fully a sport, it would be like there'd be some sort of metric. You know, in football, there's no disputing who won the game because it's who has more points, but it doesn't work like that in boxing.
I've even heard some people, I mean, even whether they win the game or not, but like I've even heard some people have a bunch of theories about how the NFL, like even the NFL has predetermined outcomes and there's, you know, some things at play.
Well, here's a fun one to jump into. Did you guys see the documentary about the NBA reffing scandal?
Oh yeah, it was great.
No.
So, I mean, basically the premise of it was like the refs were betting with each other on games and betting on games and the games that they were working. So they would have a certain amount of incentive to be like, well, I bet that this team would win by 6.
Not call fouls and like
call fouls or then call a bunch of fouls so that this guy can catch up so they don't win by more than 6. And it was just like they were making these wild calls and there was just a highlight reel of players just being like, what is happening right now?
Well, it's just like sports are just like everything else. Just choose the scam that works best for you, the one that you like the most and find the most entertaining. I'll stick with blood sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even you know, it's funny to watch like the rise of UFC and the more extreme martial art forms. It's in some ways, at least from the outsider's perspective, kind of cleaned up boxing's reputation. Like it makes boxing look so much less obnoxious, regardless of what shiesty shit is going on, in comparison to UFC, Dana White. Like those motherfuckers are literally breaking you're twisting your arm until it breaks in half and then getting $5,000.
Yeah, there is something about like holding a guy by the throat to the floor and just hammer fisting him.
Yeah, right. It's, you know,
it kind of stops feeling like a sport a little bit. I have a ton of respect for those guys because that shit is insane.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, it's just a lot more on the line. As I get older, the more I appreciate like when they step into the ring, the money is secondary.
Yeah.
And that's different than when a football player steps on the field or decides that he's not going to play that day or whatever.
Yes, that's very true. And actually, what's crazy is boxing has way more deaths than MMA, which I always like to tell people. Way more. Because you're wearing bigger gloves and you have more protective wrapping on your hands. So these guys only throw punches. So the ability, like how hard a top level boxer is able to throw a punch is insane. And then on the flip side of that, you have these larger gloves to block punches. And so you're able to absorb like more blunted blows. So you have, whereas in the UFC, if you get clipped one time good with that little glove, you're going to sleep. You know?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So that's part of why boxing, because the fights are longer and you're just taking these blunted hits over and over again.
Well, and to me, of course, everything has its rhythm, everything has its dance, UFC, Muay Thai, karate. But to me, boxing is just the most interesting to watch. And especially somebody like who understands the game, the showmanship of boxing. There's this famous boxer I watched an awesome documentary on, South American dude. He was like a beast, small little guy. He would taunt everybody. Can't remember his name anyways. But just watching him, like his character in the ring, it's kind of like, I don't know, there's elements of UFC, like the least cheesy elements of, WWF,
right,
in boxing, like in the showmanship, in the presentation, and even more so in the strategy, like understanding a fighter's proclivities or desire to do one thing over another. And I don't know, it's a sport that over time I've begun to appreciate unexpectedly. I'm not really a sports person, but
and what's crazy too is like the only other sport I really follow is boxing, and I know a lot of people in boxing that the only sport they have any interest in is boxing.
Yeah.
So there's just like it's like different stakes, it's different terms, and in some ways it's like kind of separate from other sports in that sense.
So now, what is it that originally drew you to boxing? Was it the pure violence for violence sake? Was it the want to not get beat up at school? Was it what's the other thing I'm thinking of here? I'm blanking. There was some profound thing I was trying to say, but I fucked it up. But what was it? Like, what was the thing where as a kid you're like, I'm into this?
Right. I think it was kind of a combination of things. I grew up doing martial arts. Like as a little kid, I was just kind of like a scrappy kid that liked to push and shove. I wasn't like mean. I was just kind of a roughhouser. So my mom could kind of tell that, like, all right, he's going to need somewhere to
physical activity. Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to need somewhere to get his wiggles out, or he's going to spend a lot of time in the principal's office. So I was doing that. And then like really young, I got like pretty good at it, and then I was just like a little too physical for the sparring almost. But then I started having all these weird injuries with my feet, and so somewhere in there, kicking basically kind of stopped being an option. It was like way less of an option.
Yeah,
and especially like I remember being injured and watching boxing on TV did something that like doing martial arts, that like it was replacing something for me. It was just something that was on TV that was like close to what I did.
Sure.
And I remember just getting super obsessed with it. And then when I would go back to the martial arts, it was like I was just becoming a boxer. And within a year, I don't know, 11, 12, I was just kind of obsessed
to the
with
ring.
it. Yeah, I was just kind of obsessed with it. And I think the combination of like the physicality, but mixed with the level of strategy that's involved in it, it really is kind of like a thinking man's game, at least for like the best boxers.
Absolutely.
It is very much like a dance if you watch it, and especially like, I'm sure once you get some kind of inside knowledge of, like, oh, I see what he was trying to do there, it's probably super entertaining. Because I mean, you can definitely tell it's not just guys up there just like
swinging randomly,
rock and sock 'em robots. It's like they actually have strategy and the duck and weave.
Yeah, it's hit and don't get hit, and there's plenty of ends to that means. You know what I mean? There's plenty of strategies to go about that. But yeah, I think it was just being like kind of sidelined with injuries real young sent me to the TV, and I just got real deep into it. And then by the time I was 23 or 24, I was like training guys. So I was just kind of all in. I was in and out of gyms. I was just around it all the time. And to be honest, though, you know, by high school, it was like music came first.
Yeah.
You know, music came first, and boxing was kind of always like the other important thing in my life. And it was like that until like 3-4 years ago. And I think just me finding this other lane to be involved in the sport has been really incredible.
No,
And
it
unexpected.
really
I
has.
never thought that that'd be something I was doing. You know
Well,
what I mean?
and that's what I was just gonna ask. Like, isn't it funny how like you think, oh man, I need to be a professional fighter to be talking to professional fighters, and then you're just like, no, I'm gonna do a podcast, and now you're talking to professional fighter. You know what I mean? It's a hilarious sideways approach to it. But yeah, I would agree. It's an awesome way for you to still get to be fully immersed in the thing that you love, but not have to fucking spare your wrist or ankles for it, you know?
And I know you guys can relate to this because of your musical and performing experiences, but I think it makes it easier to have a performance background and then do podcasting because
Absolutely, yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's just way less. It's way more nerve wracking to actually have to do it in front of a large group of people and not fuck up. And you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
almost.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if you start getting into stuff like that, any kind of entertainment at like a younger age, you're already out of your shell a little bit, and like you've already fucked up so bad that it doesn't, you're only better than you used to be, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it really takes away the fear of getting humiliated in front of your classmates or getting humiliated in front of a room full of people who don't give a shit about what you're doing on stage. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
And then you can be like Dakota in his boxing heyday, where he would just come out and rap his own theme song on the way out to the ring, and just really hype the crowd up, you know?
Yeah,
bro.
Get the publishing for all the views. You know what I mean? That's a packed arena. It's broadcasting all over the place. So double dipping.
Yeah, bro. I got that shit streaming on Buzzsprout.
That's fucking awesome. It's just and again like a hilarious. You never thought it would occur that way kind of situation.
Never. I did a little bit of like internet radio in high school. It was still called internet radio. It was before it was called a podcast. It was just like grown men would call in and just like talk shit really hard to me. It was sick.
Cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Experiences like that just make you fearless in certain ways.
They do.
You know?
They do.
Was it like dudes on like the phone they would call in, or was it just like a call-in show? Dude, yeah.
It was like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, dude. It was rough.
They're like, I see this with everybody, the things that they're passionate about. I talk about this with a lot of people. There's certain things that every person just has to do, and they have to do them. And if they're not doing them, they're not going to be okay. They just have to do them. It's what we have to do, so is what we do. And I feel like in the process of that, we get obsessed with the thing that we have to do. And then like principles from the thing that we love start to bleed into the rest of our life. And I feel like there's probably a bunch with boxing just because the sheer discipline behind practicing and the intensity of the training. I wonder if like any of that, do you contribute any of that to, as an adult, what makes you so like, you're an industrious individual. You stay busy. Do you see any kind of connection there? Was that a thing that fueled your ability to come out and be like, oh fuck, I can box for hours and hours. I can run around here, do this job, whatever.
I think there's an ability to deal with like stress that I've definitely gotten from it, because there's a certain amount of like, you have to calm your mind if you're sparring and someone's throwing punches at you. Like the calmer you are, the better you're going to be able to react to it. So even like in our line of work, bro, I mean, in the way we met doing live event production and doing shit like that, where you're just kind of in a high stress environment, I definitely think that's helped me in work skills, life skills.
Yeah.
There's definitely a baseline of discipline that kind of sticks with you. Even just something as simple as like understanding the value of repetition. And I learned that in music as well. But boxing, there's a kind of a more physical
component
nature
to it.
Yeah, there's a physicality to that repetition where something starts as challenging and then becomes muscle memory. So I definitely think, and I actually, to add to kind of what you were saying about like we have the things we have to do, and then like everything else in our life kind of revolves around that. And it just reminded me of like being at GovBall and being in the rain and living a freelance lifestyle because I have to have time to work on my shit. And like we're in the mud changing a tire now, and like you know, like. But it's just we got to do what we got to do, bro. And sometimes that means you got to change a tire in the mud at Randall's Island.
Yeah. Well, there's literally a flood happening. It looked like fucking Exodus, bro. Yeah. I saw like a horde of 100 kids push down a steel fence that was 8 feet high.
Don't you just love a fucking flash flood at a music festival, dude?
Holy shit.
I worked one of those in Texas, man, and it was like a fucking nightmare, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it really is the worst case scenario. But
I was at Tomorrow World. Do you guys know about Tomorrow World?
This year? What happened?
In 2015, they did Tomorrow World at like this field in the suburbs of Atlanta.
Yeah.
The whole shit flooded and was mud.
You were there?
The whole time, bro. The whole fucking time, bro. In a tent.
Yeah, dude.
In a tent.
Camping festivals too. Yeah.
Working.
There's no way to have fun. See, but at least you knew you were getting paid, but like still that shit sucks.
Oh, I was getting paid a little, bro.
Not
a little.
No, yeah. Well, what's funny though, like that is pretty shit. But I did quite a few Bonnaroos, and though it didn't flood, I feel like once you go to a festival in the South, if you're working a festival in the South, hang out, and anything in the South, you're really taking your life into your own fucking hands. Because like there was multiple times at Bonnaroo, not necessarily flooding, like there was bad flooding and mud and all that nastiness, but the worst were the tornado storms. Yeah. And everyone's out in the field next to a huge metal stage. Honestly, in their tents with metal poles. You're not making enough money to justify. Oof. Like, bro, you were in a field with your tent.
Dog, I swear to God, you can look up pictures of this shit, bro. No vehicles in or out. So they stopped picking up garbage. They stopped emptying portos. They stopped delivering food.
Oh,
you almost had a Woodstock 99 situation going.
I had it wasn't that bad, but it was like halfway there. It was halfway there, bro. People tried to leave, and then they weren't allowed to leave, and the mad people like dispersed out into the woods and got lost.
It's amazing just how much everything barely works. You know what I'm saying? Like take out one little thing, and it all just crumbles real quick.
All the festival work, bro. Like it really shows you that like the illusion of order, like it's all
yeah. The fucking we're on the edge of full collapse at any moment. At any moment. I did a fish festival, Curveball, 2018. They tried to do it. We went up there, built out this whole festival. The day of, there had been like horrible flooding, and the day they're supposed to start the show, it clears up, but somebody found out that the water supply had gotten contaminated, and they had to cancel the whole event.
Oh man,
it's beyond teetering on the edge. Like, a normal city that has like a utilities company for every type of utility and city workers that maintenance all the possible accesses to those utilities. That is on the verge. Like every day, it's lucky that our shit works.
Is teetering.
When you go into that city and then build another smaller city, doomed. It's not, something is going to get fucked up.
Not James. Not only are you building a smaller city, but as you know, you're building a smaller city that needs to be torn down very quickly.
Temporary.
Very temporary.
A very temporary city that needs to go violently up and violently down.
Yeah, dude. It's insane.
Dude, there was this one, honestly, I've been super fortunate. I've worked a lot of really cool events, met a lot of really cool people. I've only had a few scenarios where I'm like, I might fucking die. There was this one night we were breaking down Afropunk. FKA Twigs played. She had like this huge steel cage that was her set is basically like scaffolding, the scaffolding that they use to redo buildings in New York, right? And we were tasked with taking it apart, and the guys came up to pick up that shit, and these motherfuckers were like the most backwoods, methed out motherfuckers, and they were gacked. Like their eyes are just like twitching back and forth, like really, really fast. It's like, oh, all right, we need to take this, we need to take that down, and they're like these massive poles, just like throwing them all over it was craziness. It was craziness. There were multiple times where I was like, we're gonna die. This thing's gonna collapse, and we're gonna die.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, events are fun.
I think everyone thinks if you're going to them, everybody thinks there's like this grand infrastructure. Like, we're safe, guys. Like,
no.
Dude, once you see how the sausage, once you see how the sausage is made, you know what I mean? Like once you see behind the curtain, like you just like you look at events or anything in a whole different light, and you're a lot nicer to the people that are working too. Usually. Oh
my God! If I go to a thing now, I'm just like, I'm so sorry you're going through this.
Yeah, no, seriously. Seriously, it's hard. Even when I go to one, I want to like start helping pick up trash, or like I see people. I see
anything.
Yeah, exactly. Go for James.
Hospitality.
But yeah, you know, it's there's another one. Like, I love music, and I want to be around music. So how do I work so that I can be around music and also make money? You know, it was just like another thing that anyone who's inclined in music outside of going to events, it's like I don't know, just like a hilarious way. You, I'm sure, have seen some crazy shit. I have seen some crazy shit, and we all have like those weird experiences where we're like, I can't believe this is happening to me right now. Like, I can't believe I'm this proximity from this person. I have no business being here. And it's just funny that you find I never would think I'd be working a job and I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm going here. Oh, guess I'm picking up this person. Oh, I guess it's not that person. It's actually this person. Oh, shit.
Right.
Oh, shit. I'll just drive them back now.
Yeah.
I don't know those were always some fun times.
So, I mean, I guess for anybody listening, right, the advice here is just get into event work. It's terrible. And you're going to die.
You're going to get exploited for sure.
But you might get to drive around somebody famous.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Or you might get to take part in the build of a kind of halfway thought through stage.
Yeah.
You might die in a flood or from contaminated water.
Electrical fire. You could die in electrical fire too. There's like it's honestly it's that variety that gives you like the you want to keep coming back.
On your toes and keeps you young though.
Exactly. You want to keep coming back because you're not getting that kind of life-threatening employment anywhere else.
No.
Yeah. So have fun with your 9-to-5 pencil pushers.
Yeah, you might get sick from the garbage not getting picked up.
That mud might actually be porta potty runoff.
Yeah,
it's definitely porta potty runoff.
It's mixed in.
Yeah, Bonnaroo, there would always be some dipshit who would be just tripping balls.
How do you feel about
in the mud
at a festival for fun?
No, over it.
And not
at one
definitely
point in my life, maybe.
Okay, I take that back. If it was a cool, reasonable temperature, I would consider it. I don't mind camping. I don't want to camp at Bonnaroo ever again.
No. Anywhere where there's any level of heat, you're just cooking in a tent, dude.
Well, that and like you're around thousands of other people who are just like fucked up, and it's not like camping in the woods where you're like, okay, I got the stuff I need.
Peaceful.
I can peacefully sleep. It's always going to be noise. Like even dude, like I used to go to like a festival every year in Florida that was like a punk rock fest, but it was just, they just booked out all the hotels in town. Couldn't even sleep in a hotel because it was just party, central, right? So people just going in and out. And of course, like, I'm there with a bunch of like, booze guzzlers. So it was just interesting anyways. But but with a thin sheet in between you and all of that, instead of an actual wall, it's a fucking nightmare.
Just a thin strip of nylon.
Yeah. And some drunk dude's just going to fall on you or something.
It's my personal hell. Yeah. It's my personal hell.
Yeah. I have nightmares about that kind of shit where I'm just like, all right, we'll get through this. We'll get through this.
I did it once and I never do it again.
One time.
Yeah.
Tomorrow World has ruined camping for me. I will only be sleeping indoors from now on.
To be fair though, like at least nobody can say you didn't try.
Oh, I gave it a go.
Yeah, I really gave it my best shot.
I gave it a 9-day try.
Yeah. Oh no.
9, dude.
But you slept outside for 9 days. How long is the festival? Like 3 days, and then just the work on either side.
Yeah, it was like a 4-day festival, like a couple of days to build with the department I was working with, and maybe there was like a day after. If I remember, me and my boy that I'm staying with, like the last night, I remember we just like, I don't remember if we texted each other, we gave each other a look at one point, like, let's get out of here. Like, let's dip. We're kind of still on the clock, but we're like, it's time.
It's good.
Like,
we're good now.
In 4 days is too long. Like promoters, come on, especially post COVID. I want shows to end by 10, and I want like a 2-day festival. Like we can't. 4 days is too fucking much, dude. Like I get so stoked when there's 3. When I see like a band and like a bill in town, and I'm like, oh, sick. And then I see that it's at a certain venue where they like shows are done by 10 or 11, no matter what. And there's 3 bands on the bill. I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
It's like a nice 4-hour festival,
yeah.
So you don't have to feel bad about leaving early or coming late.
Totally. No, it's done at 10. I don't know. That just made me sound like old as fuck, but that's what it is. Yeah. I'm not going to camp with all the youngsters out there.
Yeah.
They're not even bathing.
Hello, kids. Do you know where to get any drugs?
Yeah. I am not a police officer.
Have you seen Molly?
Speaking of getting drugs, I wanna shift focus a little bit to the
Flawless
real
segue.
The real. I know, right? It took me like at least 3 seconds to think of it. Okay, so we're talking about we segued from drugs, the Iran-Contra affair, right? What do you guys know about the Iran-Contra affair?
Well, I can give you the real basic outline.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Essentially, I think it was essentially that officials or members of the Reagan administration were selling weapons to the Iranian government and using that funding to fund the Contras in Nicaragua, which was essentially fighting the government of that time, but they themselves were not so great.
They never are.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I guess this is like probably the first conspiracy that I ever looked into where I was like, there's fact. Like there's some fucking information here. And when this happened, I was not born yet. So it's not something I remember from my childhood, but this was like a really big fucking deal when it happened. And I think the reason I like talking about it is because it's another one of the stones on the path of this is just how it is. It's always been like this, and we're just seeing it more now that more people have cameras. So this shit is crazy. They were, as Dakota said, selling it was a kind of complex thing. In fact, you know what? Let's start in the 50s. Let's boil this down. We didn't talk about this at all in any of my history classes. I had to read myself not one single fucking mention of any of the things I'm about to say. 2 areas of the globe post World War II, South America and Iran. Middle East, but Iran. We were establishing Israel, and that was disruptive to a lot of the countries in the Middle East. They didn't really like that. We were concerned as soon as the Second World War was over, we were concerned about the Russians. We were concerned about the Russians' influence in Europe. We were concerned, and then the Middle East. We were concerned about the Russians' influence in South America. We were also kind of worried about totalitarian or really just a lot of fascist. That was just like, there was a lot of stuff that we were concerned about post World War II. And we did some things that we thought would help us kind of control what was happening in those areas, but it didn't. It just ultimately led to like generations of upheaval and government after brutal dictatorship. And we did that. CIA 100% did that. There was there's this awesome movie called The Good Shepherd. Have either of you guys seen this movie? Matt Damon, Robert De Niro. Great fucking movie. Highly recommended. It's one of my favorites. It's based on the starting of the CIA. But CIA, the people that were running the government had vested interest in companies that were exploiting the natural resources of the countries in South America and the countries in the Middle East. And when those countries were having democratic elections to have more socialist-leaning leaders come in and nationalize the industries that the industries that like the Americans were sucking monies out of, the CIA would go and like have that person assassinated. Or if that person got elected, they would send the CIA down there to create social upheaval and have far right or far left organization kill the leader. We did that in Iran in 1950. We did that all over South America in the 1950s. And we didn't really stop doing it. But I think it's like an important part of this conversation, not only because the same shit happens over and over again, but also because it's all our fault.
Well, and also to add to that, didn't we also kind of give a lot of heavy backing to the Sheikh in Iran, which ultimately sort of led to the radicalization, which led to the Ayatollah?
Yeah. No, dude, that he was a puppet and was obviously just had a back door to America for whatever natural resource or whatever it was that they were after, strategic advantage in that area. And right around this time is when the Iran-Contra shit happens.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly the Nicaragua thing. If the guy who was in charge of Nicaragua was probably like the person he wasn't so great. But then the Contras, they weren't so great either. But for some reason, they were willing to take the gamble with getting the Contras weapons and guns and munitions instead of having whoever was in charge of Nicaragua remain in charge of Nicaragua. And the Iran situation, at that moment in time, Iran was at war with Iraq. And there was also like a hostage situation at the tail end of the Carter administration into the Reagan administration. There's some funky shit there too. But the story was we're not getting involved with this at all. And it turns out they got really involved with it. In fact, it's debatable that they were fucking fueling the entire thing, like just keeping it going. It's also linked to like possible exchange of cocaine. Like there's another great movie called American Made. Scientologist Tom Cruise is in it. He plays this guy named Barry Seal, who is a pilot who used to run programs or run flights for all sorts of shit, drugs mostly. But then he kind of got recruited by the government to help deliver the guns and stuff that our government was giving the Contras. But the whole reason I'm saying this is because the government, all this shit couldn't happen in the open. So they have what happens in like CIA or covert ops is they have to literally make their own money to do their illegal operations. Congress isn't giving them money. This is a thing that isn't talked about. And it's something that occurs off of the budget entirely. They have to get the money from selling guns, selling drugs, doing something. And there's an argument to be made that like the entire cocaine epidemic and crack epidemic in the 80s was being fueled by pilots that were the Reagan administration had the don't do drugs, just say no, while also sanctioning giving guns to Nicaragua and then letting countries send cocaine back into the streets.
We're talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's like the typical
absolutely. Yeah.
We represent some sort of moral purity or some sort of arbitrator for like other people and how they behave. And it's rarely the case that we have any kind of high ground.
Well, that portion of the story isn't necessarily 100% confirmed. It's pretty circumstantially confirmable. There's a guy who did a very important expose on it for a paper in California. That was it was a big deal, but they kind of, stiff-armed him. Enough of the crucial information got kind of, it disappeared. It got shredded or burned or whatever. So the real people who should have been held accountable didn't get held accountable. So they ended up going after all the people who were like drawing attention to it. To again, another typical like government approach. But this one, the reason that this one's so crazy is because it's undeniable. This is real. This was a real thing that they really did. There's multiple different fucked up loops of shit. The big takeaway here is that Reagan really didn't have much to do with it. It was all, if anyone's organization, it was George Bush's. George Bush is vice president, former director of the CIA, definitely a former CIA operative. There's a whole bunch of strange ties to him and weird behavior, even the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. But,
if I'm not mistaken, didn't he also pardon a bunch of people involved in that scandal once he was
literally
president?
Everybody? Yeah, literally everybody. That's again another fucking
admission.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why the pardon is the joke, because the pardon is like, well, we know you're guilty, but
yeah.
But this was probably what's funny to me about this is one thing that came out, and there's been a few other bigger things that have come out that are at this level. It's nowhere near all the stuff. Like, it's nowhere near the true depth and complexity, the shit that these motherfuckers get into. This is just the one. People got greedy and sloppy.
And it was out in the open enough that Reagan went on TV and was like, "No, we gave you false information about this."
He had to. That again, like it was so undeniable that he had to go and fucking eat his words. Now there's another weird connection to this. So they talk about it. They briefly mention it in that movie, American Made. But this guy, in the 90s, there was a bunch of crimes in Mena, Arkansas that were probably related to some of this drug running, right? In particular, there was a murder. There was a murder of two boys who probably found a package or saw it get dropped off, saw someone picking it up, and they got murdered. Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas at this time. And there's a fair argument to say that not only was he like aware that this shit was happening, but there's also some other strange shit where, okay, what I mean to say here is Barry Seal at one point gets arrested, and all these cops are there and they're like, "You're done. Like, we caught you with enough drugs. You're done for forever." And then Bill Clinton calls and pardons him and lets him walk away. In fact, Barry Seal, this is the lore. Barry Seal checks into a hotel. He's going to testify against all the people. He's going to expose the thing, at least his portion of it, which was being allowed to transport drugs back into America and then bringing guns back down to Nicaragua and other South American countries that the government was fueling shadow wars in. He gets murdered, and the only thing he had in his pocket was George Bush's personal phone number.
That's wild.
This is why it's crazy, is because there are so many different layers to this onion, and George Bush really was, even at the CIA, he lived and breathed that thing. As passionate as we are, all the three of us are about music, he was passionate about fucking controlling everything as much as he could. To think that he was involved. Honestly, when I think about the conspiracy lore, the shit that this dude, it's like known that he did, is nuts. And when you think about what he got away with, it's just crazy.
Have
But
either of you seen a movie called The Unknown Known?
Unknown Known?
Have either of you heard of that movie?
That's
you make me feel
Donald
like I don't watch real
Rumsfeld.
cinema. I'm 0 for 3 tonight.
That's a Donald Rumsfeld line, though.
Yeah, so it was essentially like a long form interview of Donald Rumsfeld.
Oh no, I did watch this at one point. Yes,
and a lot of what the interview is about is Operation Copper Green, which I don't know how much either of you know about that, but it's sort of in the same vein. Operation Copper Green was sort of the organization and policies around interrogation and torture and everything that happened in Abu Ghraib and some of the pictures that were leaked. And there was some very like inhumane and fucking pretty horrific practices that took place in there. Waterboarding, all kinds of food deprivation and beating people and making them strip down. And it was just fucking really disgusting. And this like spin that he puts on it as he's talking about it is almost like I think he really doesn't have, at least him personally, doesn't have the same kind of moral compass that all of us have. Like he sees things in these very different terms, and that he is somehow in charge of that or the arbitrator of that. Yeah,
no, seriously. That it's a weird thing. Like all of it's not even a liberal or Democrat thing. It's politicians. When they get to that level, they've been so far removed from everything for so long that they honestly, to them, and they have enough people around them constantly blowing yes up their asshole for them to think like, well, everyone says I'm right, so I'm right.
I mean, I always just say, like, if anybody wants to be a politician, I feel like you have, like, a good one, you have to be a fucking sociopath, because you truly have to, like, not consider people anymore as actual, like, individuals. You basically just want to herd them like sheep. So like, in order to be good, that's what you have to do, right? So it's definitely like sociopathic behavior, and then just that kind of power hungry situation where, if you are controlling all of these things, then who's going to stop you? Like if you're already controlling what everybody sees and what they do and what they pay and what yada yada, why would you not just keep going international with it?
Yeah.
We're taking the show international, baby.
Hell yeah, dude.
America, the world.
I mean, I'm even like reading just real quick a little bit more about Copper Green, but like a lot of these policies were very much articulated. It wasn't like something got out of control. It was like, this was an accepted, almost expected method of getting information from people just on the terms of like anybody could be a terrorist. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No. There's one of my favorite things about that era was this program CIA called Extraordinary Rendition. And dude, this kind of ties back into sports. This is hilarious. There was this program they had called Extraordinary Rendition, where they had at least one, probably a couple shell companies that were charter rental plane companies. So people who owned jets would oftentimes, when they're not using their jet, they have a consignment deal with a place that coordinates flights, and they just rent the plane when the people who own the plane aren't using it. Well, the CIA had a bunch of front companies that was doing this, so they'd rent people's jets to go illegally extradite people from some other country and drop them off in Abu Ghraib or Salt Pit or any other one of the black prison sites. And they were doing this the whole time. And there's this guy named Trevor Paglin who started out just surveying, like geological surveying, and then started taking pictures of classified sites, and then started taking pictures of classified satellites, because if there's everything has to be announced when it's launched into space. Basically, this guy figured out that even top secret shit is disclosed at some point in the chain. And if I can find the one piece of information that nobody thinks to look for, I can know everything about this spy satellite or this whatever. And so that ultimately leads him to this point where he starts following plane tags, and when your plane has a call sign or a call number, that's it. It's married to your plane for forever, and all of those flights are logged on FAA, every single flight. So he started noticing like these very strange planes. It was something led him to the charter flight company. And then from there, he started looking at the planes, and he would see like all these random ass jets going to Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo Bay
or Bonnaroo,
and they were illegally extraditing people, and like a couple owners of sports teams, their planes were being used to illegally extradite people. And like celebrities and shit, their planes were being used to illegally extradite people. But again, this is verifiable shit. Like this is stuff that is now widely known, and most of that information, though it was classified, some of what they're doing still has to operate on the surface level. And if you know what to look for, you can uncover this shit. And it's probably, something similar with. I mean, especially with all the shit post 9/11, I feel like there's a paper trail somewhere. There's always a piece of evidence that people aren't necessarily looking for. That
and leaking is so much more common now. Like documents,
yeah, sure,
leaked, pictures and video get leaked.
Sure,
like classified shit gets leaked. Whether it's by people inside or outside.
Right.
What always trips me up about that, especially with where we're at today in society, is like, dude, like misinformation could be so easy to make, though. You know what I'm saying?
It is. Yeah,
like,
it is.
You basically Photoshop and like deep fake any picture to put somebody in a place where they will get them in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, so anything like that, especially if the CIA is involved, like it's kind of what they want you to know at that point.
Well, I guess that's the thing that I always go back to at any time throughout my history of personhood, when I've been talking about this shit and people will be like, why are you so upset about this? I'll be like, why aren't you upset about this? Like, doesn't it, it's not even just from the perspective of like the CIA is doing shitty shit. It's like they're playing with fire. These motherfuckers go overthrow governments with people who want to get nukes and nuke us. I'm not trying to overthrow their government. I don't care. If we have to pay a little bit more for whatever thing we're getting from their country, that's fine. Fair fucking trade. I don't want to get sucked up in their bullshit. Like they have bunkers. I don't have a bunker yet.
Yeah.
So like for them, the stakes it doesn't matter. It's different. Like kind of going back to what we were saying before, like the stakes aren't the same for them as they are for us.
Well, and a lot of times, like especially the Iran-Contra is like kind of a great example of that, where we don't necessarily as Americans know all the nuances of what's going on in that country. Like, weren't the Sandinistas kind of shown almost exclusively as like drug traffickers, but they were also like kind of a leftist organization that resisted, America's involvement in Nicaraguan politics.
Yeah.
And that was not
We didn't want that. Yeah. We didn't want that.
So, but instead of saying that, it's like, well, they're the ones bringing all of the drugs into America. So whatever we're doing to fund the Contras is in some way justified.
Sure. But then we were also green lighting the drugs coming in, you know, like, and using the money from the sale of those, like, really, I don't know if Freeway Rick Ross dealt with somebody from the CIA, but like that story actually had way more credit to it. Just nobody wanted to believe it at the time. Like nobody, and no CIA person was going to admit it. And honestly, they would have killed people for that. They may have.
Yeah.
They did not want that getting out. But it's just so funny to me how like this is some real shit. We never heard about it. I mean, I really had to watch documentary after documentary before my younger self discovered anything about the Iran-Contra affair. It's
well, that's
always,
not. It's certainly not something that it gets taught in school at all. We get like the fucking what was the cartoon where the guy's like, "I'm just a Bill."
Yeah,
Like,
no,
what-
seriously,
yeah.
seriously.
You know, like
School of Rock or whatever.
yeah, yeah. We get the
Schoolhouse Rock.
fucking we get
Schoolhouse
Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
I'm just a Bill. You know, we all just like work as a team to compromise, but
I saw this in a bunch of the videos that I watched about it just to get up to speed on it. Apparently American Dad did a Schoolhouse Rock version of the Iran-Contra
I was
affair.
gonna say, I feel like I've seen like a cartoon.
Every video referenced it because it's just so spot on. But yeah, like that's the machinations of our government are so foreign to everyone. I don't know why everyone assumes that this shit is like cookie cutter. Like it's a dirty fucking business. It's a real, like, a lot of fucked up shit has to happen so we can be sitting here talking. Like some people have had to die for us to be sitting here talking on this podcast right now. And what I think the people, if they could bear the cross if we gave it to them. But the more we don't, and to be honest with you, like the amount of shit the CIA has done now, if they were to drop that on everybody, oh my God, they lose it. They lose it. Like it's so far gone anymore. As far as like CIA, FBI, government's mindset is like, let's just keep it. Let's just keep it this way.
How important that like veil is to maintaining
yeah.
trust in institutions.
Yeah.
You know,
teetering on the edge, dude.
Always.
Again, like what we were talking about before, it's teetering on the edge. But
colleges
here's the thing.
are the same, bro. Like colleges
100%.
and universities are the same.
It's just a microcosm. Any institution of any kind, you know, it's the thing that always pisses me off though is like they're doing this. Like they're creating a lot of problems that they'll never have to deal with. But we personally, we might have to deal with them. We might have to deal with the repercussions of the shit that they're doing. And I'm sure in some ways we have already.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, we are 100%. Even if it's just on some level that we're like alienated from other parts of the world sometimes.
Yeah.
People view us in a certain light, you know?
Yeah. Or we view ourselves in a certain way.
Can you blame them?
No, that's the problem.
Well, and again, like this is what I would always have to remind myself is, and it's like at least half of this country has never even thought that this country has done a bad thing. Like at least 50% of this country will look at the softest story only. They don't want to hear any of the hard details about the shit that has actually happened for us to have the lives that we have here now. They don't want to hear it because it was a dirty fucking business. It always is. It's never been different. Go back through recorded human history. This is just how it goes. And the idea that some Americans have that like there's like this moral or ethical high ground. No, not at all. It's always been dirty. It's been dirty. The only reason we're seeing it more is because there's more TVs and radios and everyone has cameras. Like it was just as dirty in the 20s. It was just as dirty in the 1800s. And I'm sure the founding fathers, those motherfuckers were not people that anybody now would like to sit down with. Even the
Imagine if they were memeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
What did that group text look like?
Yeah. No. So
I don't know. I feel like Ben Franklin would have been fun to hang out with, but I think he's just depicted as just like a jolly smart man.
Yeah, he's like the chubby guy that invented electricity.
Yeah.
But did you? Okay, this is a super dark.
Invented electricity. Jesus Christ.
This is a super dark turn right here. Ben Franklin. Did you guys know about his house where they found a bunch of skeletons in it?
No.
There was a house that used to belong to Ben Franklin. Hang on, I'll look this up.
Yeah, didn't they found a bunch of skeletons in like the basement or something, basically?
Yeah.
Just
so all those guys were Masons. Okay. Now that in and of itself isn't so crazy. They were Masons so that they could have some kind of order to meet in secret and overthrow the British rule in the States. That's what Masonry served its purpose for. It allowed them to meet and move in secret and coordinate in secret. But they were also members of a lot of other clubs. And Masonry is the most well known, but there was another one that Ben Franklin was in, at least, called the Hellfire Club. And the Hellfire Club was a European secret society. And like these motherfuckers were into some strange behavior. Okay. Especially these of that time period in these aristocratic, like initiated high society clubs, they were into some super hedonistic behaviors. Like Hellfire Club, especially, like at a bare minimum, there was some orgiastic shit going on.
Just swapping wood teeth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you know, who knows who they were serious about their shit. Like they were serious about, I mean, even most Masons today, like they'll go to the lodge, they'll do the thing, but they're not as serious about it as these guys were. They were all about it. Anyway, so he has this house. I'm pulling up an article here. Let me see if I can share this. We'll just fucking talk about this stupid thing really quickly. Has his house, and
oh hell yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, so for nearly 2 decades leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Ben Franklin lived in London in a house called 36 Craven Street. Right. Oh my God. In 1998, conservationists were doing repairs on 36 Craven, looking to turn Franklin's old haunt into a museum. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved, remnants of more than a dozen bodies. 6 were children. Franklin was a noted revolutionary and a powerful Freemason, so it's easy to wonder what dark secrets Franklin may have hidden in his basement chamber, but the truth, it turns out, isn't quite so dark. The most plausible explanation is not mass murder, but an anatomy school run by Benjamin Franklin's young friend and protege, William Hewson. Interesting. Perfect cover, bro.
Yeah,
but that's kind of like that was kind of common then. Like the H.H. Holmes kind of did something similar.
Yeah, that would be like the dumbest like C-list horror movie. Is like Ben Franklin is a serial killer. I want to see it though. I'll watch that movie. I was 0 for 3 on every movie I'll mention today, but like
Independent Slay.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, that's so dumb. All right.
Why don't you try flying my kite?
Nice. It can be a porn too.
Dude,
hell yeah,
and
dude.
He like ties a noose with the thing and like hangs somebody with the kite.
Like he shocks himself with the kite and he's like, nah, you give it a try.
Oh my God, that's fucked. All right, Dakota, thank you for joining us. We're going to wrap it up here. If you want to plug your things here real quick, go ahead and tell people where to find your shit.
Follow me on Instagram, Dakota McCormick 93. You can see all of my podcasts and all of my music there. Follow me also at the Slip and Weave Podcast, wherever you get podcasts. And guys, thanks for having me, man. This was hella fun. Let's definitely do it again.
Yeah, we absolutely should do this again. Thank you so much for coming on here, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Good meeting you, Clint.
All right, we're out of here. Toodles.